everyone, it's Katie and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
We are on episode 7 of Agent Carter! No! Only one left of this season. We don't know if they're getting a second season. He could be getting a second season. I love the Howling Commandos episode, and I think as the most fun episode, it certainly is. But I think this one might be my favorite episode of the show. I think it's the best episode of the show as far as like direction and the way things played out.
Yeah, it had a very satisfying stories and turns and the
dialogue was excellent.
Yeah. Everything about this started to explain everything and get everything preparing us for the finale.
It was very it's a lot of things have been set up in this, and there's been a lot of what's the word I'm thinking of? There's been a lot of, really frustrating elements to the show, especially Peggy holding her tongue. And in this episode, which is called Snafu, by the way, Snafu, things
start unraveling.
Things start unraveling, and she starts, laying down some truth bombs. And it was awesome. There were at least 2 times that I can think of off the top of my head that were just pure her calling out the 3 main guys in the office so Dooley, Thompson, and Souza, for calling them out on their bullshit over the last, I guess they said 6 months. I feel bad for Souza because he says some nasty things in this episode. He at least says some really hurtful things to Peggy. And you get why he does, and that he's hurt and he feels betrayed. And he doesn't believe her. So he says some nasty things. I think Dooley was the most nasty, to be honest, because Thompson seemed to have the feeling that something wasn't right, because if she was just a flat traitor, then she would have killed him when they were in Russia together. It's like, I saw you as I saw who you really are. You saved my life. You wouldn't have done that if you were a traitor. I like the fact that Thompson actually got that.
Thompson's still a detective.
Yeah, no, I got that. But, we've seen shows where someone's detective skills are outweighed by their personal feelings and about their bitterness or their cockiness, right? And I appreciated the fact that in this case, one, I think that he did have newfound respect for Peggy, and I've liked that in this, even though I don't think that forgives him of all of his of all the way that he treated her. But I do like the fact that even in last episode, you kind of saw him going he wasn't, again, I think I said this last episode, he wasn't snidely mocking her or calling her out on big things, you know what I mean? So again, what I think, he got caught last episode, and Peggy got caught last episode, and she got taken in, and so now she's trying to tell them about this woman. For some reason, she waits until the very end of this scene to actually tell them the woman's name. Maybe it happens before we see what happened. But she ends up, I forget how it comes to play, but I think you see, it's really well done directing wise and written, because you see bits and pieces of the 3 of them interrogating her. And they compile them all together as if it's one big conversation. So you get the sense of her getting interrogated by all 3 of them, even though the 3 of them keep switching out.
Yeah. And
I thought that was a really interesting way to do it, because it ends that scene. First of all, they start suggesting that she slept with Stark, because, of course, the only reason why, it's the first thing that they throw at her as far as an accusation goes, is that that she slept with him and that she's being used by him, or she's his accomplice because she slept with him. And it really is their first line of assumptions about her. They did it with Steve, and yeah, it pisses her off. and she ends up calling them out. I forget how it starts, but she ends up calling them out. Someone's trying to text me. Actually, my friend Kristen, hi Kristen if you're watching, is literally just tweeting, because she's on the West Coast. She just was Skyping me saying, I love the part where she calls them out on how they each thought something about her. I'm like, we're just talking about that. So
This is thrilling
talking
television
on the video right now.
Anyway.
Because we're filming. I'll talk to you later. Anyway, but no, that was great timing, Kristen. You are uncanny. But she calls out Dooley for treating her like a tiny kitten that was dropped on his doorstep that he had to take care of. For Thompson, I think it was the turned damsel in distress. And then for Sousa, the woman on the pedestal who then he decided was a whore. It was a great moment, and I love that moment. So then, her only ally that's left. Jarvis. Oh, poor Jarvis. You are a sweet man. I'm sure you make very delicious dinners, and you brew tea very well, and you're great at ironing and fixing and fixing up socks and things, but you're not good at creating sneaky plans.
You literally think of your first idea,
and then he just wanted why did he think this would work? But and
you get 3 steps into a 10-step plan and failed to get the last 7.
Everything about Peggy and Jarvis in this episode, they need to have a second season because I need these two to keep working together because they are so perfect. They are the perfect, platonic partnership. And that was an alliteration. But no, so he brings it, he says, I have this signed confession by Howard Stark. And so, the guys, and they're like, but first Peggy has to leave before I give you the whole thing. And also, Howard is going to be
over Greenland.
Is over Greenland, but when he
lands, he'll send the sign paper.
He'll send the sign paper. So you should let Peggy go right now. And they're like, we're not letting her go, but we are firing her. And Peggy's just looking at Jarvis like, what the? And he goes we can. So now I'm going to I don't have a job, and I'm going to probably have a mark on me for treason. And basically I look like a fool. And he goes, well, it's better than being in prison. And she goes, well, at least Howard was actually manned up and signed it. And then Jarvis has this look on his face, and she's like, he didn't sign it, did he? No. You signed it, didn't you? Yes. You forged the document. Yes. There is no plane. No. And she goes, do you realize what they're going to do? They're not going to let us go. They're going to have us punishment. Have you ever been...
They're going to have us hanged.
Have you ever been hanged, Jarvis? And he's like, not that I recall. And suddenly he has this moment of oh yes, this was a terrible plan. I'm like, Jarvis, you did... It was
3 steps
good.
into a 7 or a 10-step plan.
And the 3 steps weren't good at all. The 3 steps you pulled off were not good, even if the plan had worked. So, and then this is the brilliant part, because I really love this. So we get to the doctor, whose name I don't remember, but the very first scene is a flashback to his time during the war, and blessed be, because I know some people wondered about this, if this is where they were going to take the character, but he was reading they were reading Faustus, which is a Marvel villain that has a relatively similar... I don't think it was exactly the same, which is why it threw people off, because I think some people said, what if it was Dr. Faust? And people were like, well, the powers aren't exactly the same, but... Yeah, basically they introduced another villain into the role, and they did it in a really smart way. They did it by not having, like, by not using his regular, like, alias name. I don't know what it was, but they did it pretending like it's an original character. And whenever they do this, it actually it works really well, because I'm one of those people that does Google the names of the different...
When someone shows up and you don't know who they are, you go Google the name.
And I'm like, oh, well then...
Oh, okay, so he's a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, mystery solved. No more need to look up, figure out the plot.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Google's got your answer.
I'm going to be told anyway by Twitter, so I might as well be on the ball. But this one was really smart. And I really liked his power. Like, when you got to see more of his power, it was really cleverly, like I said, it was really cleverly shot. And you also get to see some of his humanity, because clearly he felt sympathy for the man whose leg was being amputated. Which, by the way, man, I did not need to hear the sound of the saw starting to cut his leg off.
Yeah,
that was the sound I did not need to hear, Foley team.
We could have cut around that.
So anyway, he's still tapping the messages to Dottie. And, or whoever Dottie is, because that's something that Peggy points out, like, it's not really her name. But across the other side of the building, because there's just enough glass to, like, there's enough glass windows to see to the boss's office, she realizes that she notices the, what is it? It's not Braille, it's
Morse code.
Morse code. And she starts to write it down, and Jarvis, you're not completely useless, Jarvis, he knows Morse code. And she's like, you know Morse code? And goes, I am insulted. I'm like, you just had the worst plan. Sorry that she's still seeing you as incompetent at this point in time. So, she does a really cool thing, which is that...
Your disbelief wounds me.
That was it. Your disbelief wounds me. It's like, seriously, after what you just pulled? So, she realizes it, you know, that what's going on. She starts to, she immediately goes out, which, by the way, they didn't lock the door, like, because she just walks out. I'm like, alright, I know that she's surrounded by people, but you'd think that if there was a person with a signed confession, you would, like, keep her locked in the room. You would keep her...
She was in handcuffs during the previous scene.
Except she was in the handcuffs now, and she was with an ally, whatever. So, but she goes up and she says, I'm going to make my actual full confession. And then she tells them everything. And they have this great moment, though, where she explains that, like, she really does explain everything. And they go, like, well, what? First of all, they said, you're expecting me to believe you had this investigation under my nose? And then I think one of the other guys said, why didn't you go to any of us? And she was like, what did you expect? And I was sputtering at the TV. And I'm so glad how they handled this. This was really a great episode for Hayley Atwell. Like, it's everything you wanted her to say to these guys all season, and she just nails it. She really did a great job, and the writing was really spot on for this. Where it was, you know, first of all, I can be under your nose because none of you take me seriously ever, and I didn't come to you because none of you take me seriously, because you don't listen to me, because how
if she's not filing,
like
answering the phone or getting lunch, she's completely invisible in this office.
Yeah, and two of the I think Thompson and Souza, they had different reactions, but they both, you could tell they had a bit of like, well, damn. And then the boss was like, oh, you're a pity party. It's not a fucking pity party if she's telling you how it is. She is dropping this stuff on you. You throw all of your emotional crap at her all the time, like always making her feel guilty about stuff. It was an absolute... I just wanted to, like, shake him. But they believe her after there's the other great moment of that bit was her revealing that it was Steve's blood. And you see on her face how emotional she is about this. That she was trying to, that she's still a little bit pissed off at Howard for keeping her from this, and you can hear when she explains that. But then the whole, I felt like maybe I could protect Steve, like the little part of Steve that's left. It's such a great scene, and yeah, like it was just, this whole episode was really Hayley Atwell's to control, and she did an amazing job. So they end up believing her. They go over to the dentist who got murdered. Well,
okay, she convinces Thompson and Sousa.
And the boss.
And the boss is. Okay, so one thing we haven't covered is that the doctor has basically.
He hadn't mind wiped him yet.
He hadn't mind wiped him, but he's got him under his control. During the interrogation, he was in the interrogation room with the guy alone, and he was rubbing his ring during that scene.
Yeah, he was definitely.
And he was telling him that she's lying and stuff like that. So he's still trying to pull the strings with them in the office. He's doing this to the what's his name? The head of the department.
Dooley.
Dooley. He keeps Dooley under wraps and keeps telling him what he needs to know for him to succeed. So he's telling him that she's lying, and Dooley, even as we get this far, Dooley you could tell he's like sort of confused, but like he thinks she's lying, but he's not sure. 'Cause that's what it came off to me as.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. But the point is, though, that he does end up allowing a few of the men, including Thompson and Sousa, to go over to the other building in the most conspicuous way possible. They just, like, walk right across the street in plain view of the doctor. It's like, God damn it. Why did you guys not, like, try to go around so that it wasn't so freaking obvious?
To be honest, they don't know the doctor has mind controlling powers. So
they do know that he was tapping.
From the window. So I guess they left over in view of the window.
Yeah. So anyway,
then again, how can he tell it's them when there are 100 people in suits in downtown New York City?
So I will say, so
there's a lot of.
The last third of this episode was really tense because. I think the MCU is willing to kill off characters. Not all the time, but enough that like you're never quite sure who's safe and who isn't. And there was that warning that. Actually,
to be honest, it only really happens in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the one that.
And Agent Carter.
Well, yeah, but those are the two shows. I mean, the movies still have a few.
MCU's. How many people have died in the MCU?
There have been enough side characters. The one girl from Iron Man 3, Thor's mom.
Okay, Frigga.
The girl from Iron Man 3.
I'm still trying to figure out who that is.
The one that was working for what's his face. I remember, and she turned.
Oh yeah, scientist lady.
That was such a weak death, but anyway.
So only women stay dead in the Marvel universe.
Yes. I'm trying to think, has any man died? A couple of the villains. The Iron Man.
Oh yeah, a couple of the villains die.
Well, that's
but no one cares. They're one movie and they're done pretty much now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Unless you're Loki.
Yeah. I feel like technically some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents from Captain America 3, the ones that were on screen for like 2 seconds.
Nova pilots,
yeah. Hey, the guy, the a-hole, what about the a-hole guy who was on Parks and Rec tonight? And I was like, oh my gosh, what about an a-hole guy is knighting Star-Lord on television? That's amazing. Anyway, we're off track. But still, like, as far as the shows go, there are, the whole, like, who could die thing, especially this late in the season. It's not that, it was pretty clear that something was going to go down, and it could have been both Sousa and Dooley. Especially because, like, anyone who gets near Dottie tends to die. So
we killed off the nameless agent. in that scene.
Yeah, at least it was another white guy. Slowing down the ratio. It wasn't the Hispanic guy. Also, like, yeah, when they find out that one of their other agents gets hit by a bus, again, the amount of, like, of shock and, like, and anger is still way freaking low compared to that first death. And I'm trying to figure out, I mean, like, yeah, I get it, because they need to go on with the plot.
He was the rookie. Whatever. Like,
I'm pretty sure you would still care.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
there should be some emotion here.
The problem is that they needed everybody to really give a damn about the guy that no one actually liked, in order for there to be, like, resonance. But then with all the other deaths that have been mostly, like, just fodder, for the story, they have to move on so fast. That's kind of been a problem. It's like, oh, he got hit by a car. That should be horrifying. And instead they're like, well, we better go back to talking to Carter.
Forget about that.
Yeah, forget about that guy. We're never going to mention him again. Not ever again. So anyway, luckily Sousa survives meeting Dottie.
He's not killed by Tony Stark, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sousa survives. She escapes. Another really great scene by the woman who plays Dottie. She's really dang intimidating in this role, and I really like that.
Yeah, she gets this sort of, like, creepy vibe.
Yeah, she has it all in the face, but, like, even all of her fight scenes and stuff, like, you believe it, you know what I mean? And her going down the
stairwells. We're talking about different scenes. I'm talking about the scenes when she's buying the carriage.
Oh yeah, that was creepy too. Even though I totally called that it was clearly going to be for, like, the weapon.
You said a bomb.
Yeah, because I knew that there was an explosion happens in the preview, so I knew that was coming. But I still knew that it was going to be, like, so that she could walk around with this, whatever the weapon is. So he, Dooley, hypnotized now, actually imagining him at, like, with his family, which is really, really depressing. But he ends up, helping the doctor get this particular weapon. Surprisingly not stealing any of the other ones, and you think that what they would want to do is steal a few of them so that people don't know which one you're going to use, and also so you have more weapons.
True. You would probably think that, but also true is that you could just make it so Jarvis doesn't know what the weapon is, so that there's still some mystery!
Okay, writers. Anyway, and they also happen, conveniently, to have the doctor recognize a bit of weaponry, but that they're not going to touch because it's very delicate and no one should touch it. So it ends up that Dooley, hypnotized, has gone into his office, put on this vest that the doctor that was the one that he said was very delicate. Strapped it on, and it's only when they're knocking on his door that he wakes up from this dream, which again is so creepy because, like, I was thinking, like, okay, there's like a 55% chance that
I was really hoping he was in the office and not actually, like, with his family about to murder them all.
That was the other thing I was worried about, to be quite honest, but it's still really depressing. And it had that nice music, but it was, like, a little too cheerful. But the wife was actually really realistic, which is what threw me off. But I was thinking that, like, that he was going to kill himself in front of them because of the guilt. But no, he has this. I will say this much for the doctor, because he seems to want people to die. The people that he seems to want them to die happy and contented. And he clearly was trying to give Dooley, like,
a happy ending.
a happy memory as he was going to be burned alive, because the vest was a malfunctioning invention of Howard's, because Howard makes accidental weapons a lot. And
I don't get what this vest was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be, like, I'm pretty sure for the Russians, for their for winters. The idea is that it was supposed to be perpetually heat so that in the coldest environments,
without needing energy.
Without needing energy. So it's like self-perpetuating heat source in the vest. The problem is that it wasn't stable, and it basically ended up burning his skin and then exploding. I give them credit though. They actually did, like, they actually showed everyone trying to help him and brainstorm how to fix it, which it was way better than just like him jumping out the window first.
Also, conveniently, it counters everything that you could possibly throw at it.
That's because Howard is thorough in making stupid stuff. But that was a really tense scene because, like, they kind of knew what was going to happen. Like, obviously they were setting it up. But it's still, like, even though you don't like the guy, you understand that he wasn't necessarily a bad person. And the fact that he was just about to reunite with his family after separating from his wife. That's, like, really intense and, like, emotional stuff. And I really liked, and we talked about this before we recorded, I really liked the fact that Dooley looked at Thompson to say, tell my wife that I love her and that I'm sorry I'm not going to be there. But he looked at Peggy to say, promise me you're going to stop the people who did this. And I love the fact that he doesn't give the comforting role to Peggy and the actual job getting done stuff to the men. He gave it to Thompson. He gave the comforting aspect to Thompson, who, by the way, has actually said, has done multiple times, has been the person to give comfort to someone whose loved one died, and because it was the first guy and also the guy who died in Russia, he offered to do it. So I found that really interesting. But also the fact that Dooley went, like, he could have chosen Sousa, he could have chosen any of the other guys in the office or the whole office. He chose Peggy. He looked right at her. So that was awesome. And he had a good way, I mean, it was a good way to go as far as the best way to make the least amount of casualties possible. And Sousa had amazing view. Again, everything about this episode was shot so well. Like, they just chose really great ways to use the direction and the cinematography to tell a good story. I love that. I'm
still kind of surprised that once they figured out it was going to explode, they didn't try to conceal him in an area where there wouldn't be many casualties if it went off.
I think they were more focused on trying to stop it.
True.
Like, I think they really thought that they could maybe stop it, and then Dooley realized that it wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
It's really convenient that it blew up right as he was, like,
instead of,
like falling.
An hour after he hits the pavement.
No, I think it as soon as it was going to be touched, remember? So if he hit the pavement, it probably would have exploded anyway. But that would have been on the floor, and that could have hurt a lot more people. I think with where he was at, it would have been way more just,
Maybe he shot the vest out the window.
He might have, too. He might have shot it and then shot himself.
Shot out the window, then shot out the vest.
I wondered about that, too. So, surprisingly, not the most disturbing part of this episode. Because the last bit is, and I really hope they keep going with, I gotta believe that they're gonna keep going with this, because obviously they did not take any other weapons from what we know. So, I'm assuming that they have more than one canister for this thing. In fact, I think I might have seen that they had more than one canister. Anyway. But what happened was the two villains, the Doctor and Dottie, decide to test / send a message to, I think, the SSR, by pushing the baby carriage, and then just walking away. And it's weird that no one noticed the baby carriage was just, like, in the middle of the aisle, right? But she did the canister, and she walked quickly out of the room. They locked up, they didn't even have to lock it up, but they locked up the door and walked out.
They left this gas weapon inside a theater full of people watching some movie, and she locked them all in.
And, you assume it's going to be like a poison, right? Like, that they're just going to drop dead. It wasn't. It was basically a make everyone crazy and violent and murderous gas. Which, by the way, explains what happened in... What was the... Do you remember what the town was called? They said it a few times.
I know, they keep saying... But it's the Russian town where they had that fight.
Yeah,
with the Russians and the Germans, and everyone was dead, and then no one knew what happened, and they call in Stark.
Yeah.
Maybe he figured it out, or maybe it was his weapon. We don't know yet.
I want to say, I'm going to guess it was his weapon, but the whole idea was that all these Germans were blamed, the Nazis were blamed, and the Nazis was like, we weren't there. Like, we've done a lot of stuff. We weren't at this one. So clearly, that whole bloodshed thing and no one surviving is because of this gas. I'm gonna guess...
I pointed that out during the episode, but if you want to keep pointing it out now...
No, you pointed it out. Mike pointed it out to me, and I went, oh, but I'm just trying to explain because I seem to be the exposition person tonight.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I'm just the joke maker, and I'm not doing a very good job at that.
I know, well, we're talking about murder, so...
Very true. It's a very sensitive subject.
Except they had the whole joke about the, Harry, if you hadn't been... Like, these two people, the way that they reveal exactly the results of it is that this couple comes in late to the movie, which clearly means that it wasn't that late, because they were like, we haven't seen the short before! We're missing the first 15 minutes! And so clearly this did not take long. Surprisingly enough, you think that someone would hear all the screaming?
Or the yelling.
And the yelling.
And apparently also the projectionist. You know, the guy that runs the camera up in the booth?
Technically, it could have come through the glass.
I thought those were usually open air.
Well then...
Either he's affected by the gas as well, or he didn't run down to tell everybody.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be locked in the projectionist room either.
Yeah, let's just...
I mean, because, like, up until, like, probably 90s, you used to employ a projectionist at a theater.
The point being, maybe he went out for a smoke. They'd smoked a lot in the 40s.
He's Bruce Banner.
Okay.
That's where their anger comes from.
Yeah.
This is the origin story for the Hulk.
It would be actually interesting if they tied in, but not that Bruce was there, but it'd be interesting if they tied in
this gas to Bruce's.
I don't know if they would, because radiation usually is gamma radiation, but with angry gas.
Angry gas.
Science. The Marvel way. Oh, God. But yeah, it was really disturbing, and, like, you saw people getting their eyes gouged out. It was a pretty messed up episode, and it was really satisfying to see all this stuff come together, though. It was weird, though, because the preview didn't really mention anything about the gas, and it was way more about Howard coming back and giving a speech, I guess, and then maybe getting shot, or getting shot at, and it was like, but that's not as interesting as this gas that makes people into psychopathic killers.
I thought they said something about the target being either Times Square or Central Park.
Yeah, but if...
It was one of those two. I can't remember.
I think it was Times Square. I think I remember Times Square. Which is amazing because you know where Steve ends up at the end of the first Captain America movie?
Times Square.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a really good episode. Once again, the lack of diversity was the weakest part of it because they couldn't even give the non-speaking reception roles, the reception or the phone lady roles to women of color. I don't think I saw a single one. Yeah, it was. It's kind of ridiculous at this point, and I'm gonna keep saying it. Hopefully, I really, really hope that the writers of the show, when it gets renewed, knock on wood, that they do listen, because I think, Groot fell over. I knocked on wood so much that Groot fell over. I don't know if you can see. He's over here.
He was in the corner. He was a hidden little thing. Now you're just showing everybody. You can't even see him now.
It's fine. It's fine. So, so when the show does get renewed, knock on wood, that they're actually going to handle it better. Maybe actually once, I'm assuming she's going to start running S.H.I.E.L.D. next season when it gets renewed. So I'm hoping...
The weird thing is that already in the Agents of Carter continuity, because I've looked this up today, at first I was wondering if
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is that what did I say?
You said Agents of Carter. It's same difference.
Anyway, I was wondering if the item that he stole, 017,
was the Obelisk. Which, if you recall from like 2 months ago.
I looked up, the Obelisk is 084. So it's not, well, it's obviously not that item. But anyway, so either the SSR already has this item, or if the SSR is going to fall apart at the end of the series and then Peggy's going to start running up S.H.I.E.L.D., then I guess this mission where Peggy gets the Obelisk with the Howling Commandos already occurred.
I'd love to see it if it already occurred, because it implies that she's working with the Commandos again.
But I mean, like, because it was SSR that got it. It wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D. that found it. It was SSR that found it. The Obelisk.
Oh, that's true.
So...
I'm thinking
that it has to have already happened, but we really haven't established that it happened in this series.
You know what? I think it did happen pre the show, specifically because it's at least implied that Peggy was doing that to basically clean up after World War II, like clean up after the Nazis and try to find them all, which I believe was a real thing that happened, was like, the rounding up of all the war criminals. So that would be my guess, that this was happening before she went to America.
Before she came back to the desk job.
Yeah, before, like, this was her wrapping things up with the Howling Commandos and trying to get that taken care of. That's what I would guess.
Yes.
So, with that in mind, we have one more episode. So far, the ratings for the show have been decent, right, in the last couple weeks?
Yeah, actually, we talked about it last week, and it actually came up on Tumblr posts and everything else, and we also looked it up with TVSeriesFinale.com, and Agent Carter is second in its time slot for ratings.
Only second to, like, the juggernaut that is NCIS New Orleans, because apparently...
Watched by 15 million old people.
Like, it is seriously... both of the NCIS are, like, leagues higher than all the other shows, which just go to show that it's just these old people that won't die and give up their Nielsen boxes.
Yes. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually 10th on ABC's chart. Mm-hmm. And Agent Carter is 12th out of a total of 21 shows on ABC right now. And 2 of those have already been canceled, so 19 left. But Marvel's Agent Carter is significantly just right there, mid-range.
It's right in the middle. Castle is the one right above it, and Castle's, like, been a solid show.
Gallivant got its second season, and it's below...
Is Gallivant official?
I believe Gallivant got it.
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, I thought Gallivant already got it. I don't know.
I haven't heard about them officially getting it, so I don't want to say officially.
I really thought they got it, because that's why I thought they already had gotten it. I'm pretty sure they got it. I'm 80% sure Gallivant's got a second season.
Anyway, so, but yeah.
Carter's above Gallivant.
They're also above, like, let's see.
Nashville.
Revenge, which is a big show. Too bad for Selfie. I feel bad for Selfie. Poor Selfie. Anyway, so it's doing solid. I'm hoping that if you're a fan of the show, try to watch live next, or, like, or plug it really hard on Twitter, and just make sure to watch it legally. That's, like, the big thing. So if you're going to watch it, try to watch it legally. So
that's the best way to support the show, because then they actually know that people watched it.
Exactly.
Rather than through torrents, and then, they're like, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, well, we can't...
Unless you're international, because, quite frankly, international...
There are some options,
Some options, but if you don't have an option, that's pretty sucky. I feel sorry for you.
No, I do too. Alright, so anyway, we'll see you next week for the finale.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.